All right. Alison, thank you for being here, and thanks for actually doing this. I'm really excited to have this as our inaugural podcast with you. Um, but you have a film premiering at the Toronto Black Film Festival. It's called Mr. Jane and Finch,
Yes,
and it will be on CBC Docs as well.
yes.
I guess my first question to you is, how did you pitch this film to Winston? Who is Mr. Jaden,
Winston, wow.
Mr. Jaden Finch, of course.
Well, actually, our director is Gaddy Conte George.
Oh,
And
sorry,
he,
you're producing the film.
yeah, I
Yes.
produced the film and co-wrote it with Gaddy. But, it just kind of happened organically. We just came off of, a series of films that I produced called The Legacy Project about five, yeah, well, actually six black activists from Toronto who are no longer alive. And Gaddy had done a short. She made a short called Dudley Speaks for Me about Dudley Laws and his legacy. And Winston, he saw the film. And he contacted, Gaddy through a friend,
Right.
and sequestered her into a meeting and said, "You know what? That's a great film, but I have a lot of footage uh, that you could use for the film that you made." And it turned out that, in addition to be an activist, he was an amateur
Right.
documentarian, and he's been shooting, documenting the black community in Canada and across the world, basically, for the past 60 years.
Nice.
So we got together, looked at some of the footage, and then we decided, let's make a documentary about your archives.
Nice. And did you guys get into the actual part where he's actually running for this municipal, being a municipal councillor? And do you how far were you getting from the 11 weeks to the 14 weeks?
So you saw the film?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So we were on a different trajectory when we started this
Okay.
film. It was all about Winston's archive, all the legacy issues and stories that what we could find in his archive. We did a deep dive into his archive and found some wonderful materials. And as we were, starting to shoot, he just said, he was going to start to, run for city councillor in Jane and Finch. And Gaddy, being the most amazing filmmaker that she is, she goes, "Oh, let me keep an eye on this. Let me just start shooting some of that."
Right.
And then that became our story. That became the central story. It just popped off the screen basically when she was shooting, and that's how we made that film.
Nice, nice.
I mean, his archive is still a little bit apart. You've seen the film, so the archive is still a little bit of part of the story, and we've made the smaller pieces, which CBC is actually going to launch one of the pieces that we made out of his archives, which is very beautiful. I think it might be launched tomorrow or Monday,
Nice.
so look out for that. But yeah, it's stunning what happened.
Yes. I think we're gonna see the teaser trailer soon. Jeff will probably pop it up. What upset me most about this film was, and oh, there he is, Winston. I think he's great. I mean, see him run, and he's 80 years old,
Yeah.
so alive, and he does more than what the average person does, I think. And I was just so inspired by what he does and what he does for the community and stuff. And just erasing that stigma of Jane Finch.
Yeah.
When I was younger, in high school, we always used to talk about the bad neighborhoods in Toronto, and Jane Finch was always one of them. And that's been going on. That stigma has been going on since ever since I was in high school or as a tween. And this gentleman, is trying to remove that stigma, and I think it's great. And what are your thoughts on removing that stigma?
Stigma is really hard. It's a hard thing to kind of remove once it's there. I've done a lot of films about social issues. Women living with HIV, people with health issues, people with, from certain communities, LGBT communities. And when the stigma is there, it's really hard to change people's minds about that person, or that what that person has, or where they live,
Yeah.
or the color of their skin. And that's the amazing thing about cinema, and that's something that I've tried to do all my life, is to make films that show that we're more alike than different, and our differences are interesting, and they're also caused by reasons and all that. So that's why we make these films that we do. And I think this story it just kind of jumps off the screen, that Jane and Finch, the Jane and Finch community is like a community like every other community in Toronto. It's a beautiful community with beautiful people. And Winston LaRose, his eyes and his journey, being there, going there every day and doing what he does, is just a testament to that.
Right. But what really upset me was the other guy, Giorgio Mammalati.
Yeah.
Mammaliti.
Mama Lidi.
And his comments about cockroaches living in buildings and stuff. And I'm like thinking, is this guy following the template of a Donald Trump? You know what I mean? Like, because Donald Trump is there, I might as well be a person like, I can probably talk. Let's talk like him, because he can talk like that. I can talk like that.
Well, all I have to say is that, thank goodness he didn't get elected.
Thank goodness, yeah.
He didn't. So if he's following that kind of behavior and way to be, that's the American president. We're Canadians. We don't behave that way.
Right.
That's not what Canada is about.
Right. Absolutely.
That's not what our leadership is about. And so the people rejected that, and that's a good thing.
How did you view Mr. Jane and Finch after you did this film, after you put it all together? Like,
it's still kind of it's sort of like a ethereal. At one point in time, Gaddy and Sonia Tagobo and Godding, which is our editor, we were all sitting back and we're looking at the film, and we were just like, this is a good film. Like, we felt like satisfied. Like, and it's a tough crowd to please, right? But we thought we were very satisfied with what we accomplished. And I think we're telling a story in a different way that you may not necessarily see on CBC Docs. I think it's a lot of people say that it's an unconventional documentary. It's layered, and that we really show the man. We really, do a good job at showing him, the man behind the title of Mr. Jane and Finch. Right.
I wanted to speak to you in regards to the Doug Ford incident and of like shrinking down his staff there. What were you? So when you were doing this film, like during that duration, what were you thinking at that time, and what were you thinking for him?
Oh, it was troubling, because at that time, let me just step back. That's
Sure.
the beauty of making documentaries,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah,
It's the beauty of making
you don't
documentaries.
know
Like,
what's
when
gonna
stuff
happen.
is happening,
Yeah.
like we were getting news on a daily, if not hour by hour, moment. It's like, oh, do we get this? Do we get that? It's lots of decisions. Hats off to Gaddy for keeping on top of what was important to capture and what wasn't. And we captured a lot that we didn't show, because it's a 44-minute film for TV. But it really, really, I don't know. It was just like, we were just in the thick of it. And it was sort of like, we wanted to know along the way what Winston is thinking about it. But it was so funny. He kept his cool. He kept his cool throughout the whole thing. He was like a steady beam of light. And so we thought, what do we do? Follow the drama full out, or do we follow the man?
Right.
And so we decided to follow the man and look at the things through his eyes.
Right.
And I think that's why the film resonates, is because, you can get a lot of that stuff on the news, but to follow it from someone who is representing Jane and Finch, or wanted to represent Jane and Finch, and who's there every day with the people. That's that's a point of view that you don't necessarily see.
Right. Now this is going to be on CBC Docs and
Yes,
yeah,
Friday,
yes.
Friday, February 22nd, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and I think 9:30 Newfoundland. And it's also doing world. So that's the world television premiere, but it's also doing a world streaming premiere the same day in the morning. CBC is going to be launching the film on their platform called CBC Gem in the morning that day. So if people don't have CBC for some reason, everybody's on different platforms.
Right.
You can watch it that morning. You could just log on CBC Gem and they'll have it there streaming for you in the morning.
I've been so impressed by CBC. A gentleman, filmmaker Jeff Morrison, I believe his name is. He gave me his farm crimes series, and about it was about people stealing farm animals in
Oh, wow.
in their farms. But I was watching it on CBC, and I just liked the way that it was presented on CBC, and it was sort of like it was very similar to Netflix. But would you agree to that? Like CBC is very up to date in terms of their platform and how they reach their audience, of course.
Absolutely. I think they're really, really doing a good job at, trying to give people different options of how they watch docs that are supported by CBC and are, original CBC content. So I think that's a great thing. Like, the fact that maybe someone, that lives in Vancouver can just log on when they wake up and see it, right? And same thing with someone who lives in Newfoundland, right? So that's great.
That's good. That's really good. Now, what's this is going to be at the Toronto Black Film Festival. I'm pretty sure you're excited about that. Tell us a little bit about this premiering at this festival and what it means to you.
Oh, I think it's a wonderful opportunity to see this film with community all in one space. Talking about platforms, you going on CBC Gem, or you watching it at your home on CBC Docs POV, but seeing it in the cinema with the community there, I think there's a lot of people from Jane and Finch are calling us. We want to be there. We want to see Mr. Jane and Finch. That's going to be an exciting thing, and that's going to be also accompanied by a panel discussion about the film and about maybe what happened during, well, I don't want to give away too much.
No,
right?
I know. I shouldn't be talking too much about that either.
Yeah.
You included Black Lives Matter in this film. Can you tell us their well, I guess can you tell us why you put that group in there?
Well, part of the film is looking at Winston's perspective on his activism through a lens of Pan-Africanism. Like that's what he follows, and we show some of his archives. We show some of the things that he believes in the film, which just resonates. It's just beautiful, but it's great to know in terms of provide context about why he does what he does and the way he sees the world, and some of that thinking, even though it began for him maybe 40, 50 years ago, you still see it today in the young people who are trying to push back against policies, against events that happen that horrific in our community, to create change. And so I think we wanted to show that connection, that as much as things have changed, some things have remained the same.
Right?
And so that's what we put that there, and it's there's some poetry to it, I think.
Yes.
When you look at that, and that's why I think this film is unconventional, because we really try to, not just tell you the facts, but we try to give an experience for the viewer watching it, so that they can piece things together in their own way, and come away from the film with, not just the typical questions, but maybe other things that, yeah.
So at the Toronto Black Film Festival,
Mm-hmm.
I've been there a few times, and they have
Mm-hmm.
great speaker series. Um, and and they talk about sometimes funding films and funding
Mm-hmm.
independent films. What is your take nowadays for independent filmmakers and how to get their films funded? Are people still doing Kickstarter or the
Oh
Indiegogo
wow, yeah.
style? Yeah.
It's almost like I
Or
haven't heard about Kickstarter in a while. Like a while is like a
yeah.
year. Yeah. What do I think about the funding? Well, the funding landscape always changes in Canada.
Yeah.
Let's just be straight, right? Like it's never the same. As soon as you get comfortable with what it's like, it changes, right? So it's almost like okay, every year we start with okay, where's the funding? Okay, where's it coming from? What's no longer there and whatnot. But I do think one thing I have to say before getting into that is that Canada has amazing filmmakers.
Hmm.
A lot of them are my friends.
Yes. Yes.
But
Yes.
there's some amazing talent out there, like,
Hmm.
young, older, whatever. And the funding there you really have to do your homework. You really have to do your homework. Even I know seasoned producers, that are always talking to me about, how to, look out for this fund. Look out, and I'm like, really? Oh, there's a fund like that. But you know, it just takes a lot of like at the beginning of the year, or even by the end of the 1 year, you have to kind of prepare for the funding for the next. But the only thing is, in this landscape, you just have to have a lot of different projects going
Hmm.
in development.
Right. Instead of just one and just pitching that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the big thing, right?
Well, what's the why are say up and coming filmmakers doing that though? Why are they still holding on to that? Are they still holding to that?
To the
Just still
one
like
funding.
yeah, one
Sometimes it's
fund, one
hard to.
pitch.
Well, you know what? When you want to put your best foot forward, sometimes doing like one thing is the way to go. Just so you can focus, and making films is not easy really, and
No,
you
it's not.
really need a team and all that. And sometimes that's the better way to go for some people. But I've always been like a producer, director, writer type. So like that's just worked for me.
Hmm.
So for me, it's about having a lot of different projects and working with people, collaborating, so that I can keep working and I can keep making films and making good films, right?
That's the
So
bottom
that's
line.
the bottom line, right? So and I work with Gaddy really well, the director, and we formed a company called Oh Yeah Media Group, OYA Media Group.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, we have, and that's and we're developing some other projects, and not just with Gaddy directing or myself directing, with other people directing as well,
Hmm.
or writing and whatnot. And that's a very comfortable space for me right now because I get to not work in isolation.
Right, right. So do you have people already pitching to Oh Yeah about their projects? And
Oh yeah.
there you go. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess so.
Where
um,
do we go from there, right?
I always thought that we're doing a better job at like the film festivals here in Toronto
Hmm.
of going and representing women, women, and of course colored filmmakers and such. What are your thoughts on the Share Her Journey? And were you part of that? Did you take part of Share Her Journey last year at TIFF?
I supported it in terms of being an ally and feeling represented, and and really trying to recommit to you know my my journey as a producer, like the types of films I want to make and the people I want to work with. And I have to say, with Mr. Jane and Finch, our director's a woman, our editor's a woman, our production manager is a woman. We have a lot of young females on staff in terms of like crew and whatnot, our sound recordists. So we were looking to, really take that to heart and make sure that when we were crewing up and doing the production for this, that we put, we had women not just in administrative positions, but also in technical positions. And I think that really helped to tell the story, because it's a very nuanced film, and it just trickles down, I think. And and because of that, we're building a family so that we can continue supporting that. Not to say that men aren't allowed, like our composer is Oren Isaac, and Mark Valino is a great DOP. He does a lot of music videos for hip hop artists and whatnot. He's very talented, and but I think that for us, it just allowed us to recommit. This is what we're doing, and it's shorthand. Now people know, like, this is what we're up to.
Right. So you think we're on the right path with, like, share her journey?
Well, I don't know. Well, in terms of, like, what do you mean?
The actual industry in Toronto, the film industry
I
in
think,
Toronto? Or is there still a lot of work to be done?
Until it actually becomes, equity is in place and it becomes equal, I think that's, you keep on fighting for it.
Right.
But I think building awareness, and now it's conscious and we're all talking about it, there's no excuse for productions to not have women in certain key positions, or, leading productions or directors and whatnot. People always look at the director, right? Yeah, but there's other technical positions too, right?
Yeah. That
need to be nourished in terms of having women and gender equity. So I think I've always felt like I've done that, though. I've always, made spaces for people of color and women and queer people on my production. So it's like, oh yeah, okay, but but that's what I kind of do. But the language is there now for the industry. So that when we say we're doing it, there's not a pushback from them. You know what I mean?
Hopefully, Jeff can pull up the Rapimentary
back in the day.
Tell us a little bit about that, and why you chose Citizen Kane for that.
Well, this is an old story, but I'll just repeat it. Well, I was looking for a rap group to follow, so I can see what was happening in the industry at the time. This is like 2000. This is like late 90s that was made, and I just came off of co-owning a production company called Rage Film House with Ricardo Diaz, Jeremy Hood, and Earl White, and we had made a lot of videos back in the day with urban talent, and I just saw that the reality. Pardon me.
Factor as well.
Factor and Much Music had something. Factor and something else. Video Fact.
Video Fact. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I just wanted to, it was just interesting, that world of, trying to make Canadian hip hop at the time when there was no black radio. There was just college radio stations. There was no Flow. There was no
88.1.
Yeah, 88.1.
DJX, yes.
DJX, and then there was the other one with Motion and their crew.
89.5?
89. Oh, gosh. I don't know. I can't remember. But there was another one with, was one UFT and one with Ryerson? Or I can't remember what was the other school.
I think it was York University.
University.
105, because I went to York University, 105.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they had a really good crew and team down there, and that's where, when you were a hip hop artist back in the day, or a rap artist, or urban musician, that's where you launched your whole album, or your EPKs or whatever, your EPs or whatever, and so it was kind of this world. Is like, how are you going to make it in Canada? Because you need to sell a lot of records.
Right.
So, anyways, I was looking for a group, and a friend of mine, Vance Chapman, who's a writer. I think he's still in LA right now, but shout out to Vance. But he said, well, why don't you follow your brother's group? And I'm like, isn't that nepotism? Like, I can't do it. And he goes, well, they were nominated for a Juno. They're about to drop an album, which was very unusual at the time for an independent group. Just follow them. And then I went to the NFB and said, hey, well, maybe I can do this and I can follow my brother's group.
Yeah.
But I didn't ask them. So they said, okay, this sounds interesting. Didn't hear from them for a month. Then they came back and they said, we want to do this. Let's do it.
Right.
And then I had to go to my brother's group, Citizen Kane.
Right.
And then they said, we ain't doing that. Because, you know, they were seriously street.
Right.
Right? They're from 400 McCowan. There was some shady stuff going on. Can't get into too much detail around that.
Yeah.
But it was sort of like, you know, no, we don't want all our business out there. And then I told them what the kind of story I want to tell, like them trying to release their first album. And then eventually they said yes.
Can you play that, Jeff? Let's see.
I can't hear audio. Is there audio?
There'll be audio on the actual mixing. But this is an era that I loved about hip hop, and I remember about hip hop. And I don't listen to hip hop anymore. But this is the era where I did listen to a lot of hip hop and like Ghetto Concept, Shot Claire, Mishimi, and all the American rappers too, and Rap City, of course. And you know, my buddy was over the other day, and he was just freestyling to, you know, instrumentals and stuff, and it was funny. But I think this time period of hip hop music and such, which is called the golden age of hip hop, supposedly.
Is it? But who called it that?
I don't know.
No, we can call it that.
We can call
I
it.
agree.
I don't, it was, and this it was such a pivotal time for me, and it's weird that, yeah, we're talking about, you know, how Shot Claire and Ghetto Concept and the Rascals were trying to, you know, they were trying to like make it in the Canadian hip hop scene. And now we have somebody like Drake who's just killing it.
Yeah.
I think it's something that we never saw coming.
I think, yeah, why didn't we see it coming? Because the grind back then was so different. Like, they didn't have black radio, right? Like I said. And I think Drake, if I remember, Flo was the first person to play, or first radio station to play Drake.
Flow 93, right?
Yeah, so that was like a first really black commercial radio. And with commercial radio, you can get a Drake.
Right.
Like, if you think about when you're in your car, how many times they play Drake?
Right. A lot.
Like, I was like, wow, Drake, you can count, and it's like a lot, right?
Right.
Without that, you're not going to get a Drake.
Right.
Right?
Well, yeah, simple.
It's just simple.
Simple math.
So that's what happened there. And then with the internet and with all that stuff, you know, and having great marketing, teams behind you, and people who really, the labels really believing in people, you know.
Yeah.
That's what produces that's what produces success. Yeah.
And he just came at a great time, I guess. Just coming out, yeah.
Great time, unique style, you know. And so that's, yeah, great time, like what was happening in hip hop when he came out. And so just timing is good. And then also, you know, people underestimate being connected to the entertainment industry as well. Like, he was already connected being an actor.
Right.
And
Degrassi.
in Degrassi, and being, you know, sort of like in the milieu of, you know, what's going on at that level. You know, when you're rapping from communities like Rexdale, when you're like Infinite and Ghetto Concept, or you're, you know, is it Boiling Point from Regent Park, and then, you know, Motion's Crew with Danny O and all those guys, and they were like more I think Scarborough North, and then, you know, Citizen Kane and others like that, that's coming out of community, sometimes public housing. Like, you're not surrounded by entertainment per se, you know, so that
icon,
like
influencers,
the influence, and industry in terms of business, right? So it's a lot harder when you're not part of the business structure of things to actually make it as an artist or entertainer. But like, I do feel like, you know, that was for me the golden age of hip hop, because we knew the people. You know,
Right.
it's like, you know, I walked out of my door. I grew up in 400 McCowan, which
Right.
is public housing,
Mhm.
and in Scarborough. But it was a dope place to grow up. I'm telling
Yeah.
you, like you walk out of your house, there was stuff happening. People, you know,
Yeah.
people were going to school, learning stuff, and coming back and telling you like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Artists, great artists, people, just fantastic artistic skills. Then you had rap groups that were performing, that were part of a community, part of your hood,
Right.
and you know. And every day, and then you knew the people, so you knew you could hold them accountable for like when they went on the radio and said something that was totally like, I'm gonna use a back in the day word, whack, right?
Yeah.
Everybody
Whack
held them
MCs,
well,
yeah.
exactly. Everybody held them accountable because
right.
they knew that that's not the person I grew up with. So
Right.
like although I support Toronto and their rap scene now, it's just like, it's a great scene. There's a lot of names I don't even know. Like I think it'd be kind of weird if I knew all the rappers out now because I'm an older woman. But I do support the artistry, and I think that Toronto always had really, 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 good talent. And even before my brother's group, like there was the Maestros and Mishi Me. My brother came up through Mishi Me because he was her backup dancer,
Right.
and Dream Warriors and
Dream Warriors.
Rumble and Strong and all. I can't go. I'm aging myself, right? I'm dating myself, aging
No,
myself.
no.
But
we can talk about it.
yeah.
I know those. I know those groups. Don't worry.
And those groups were international.
Mhm.
They were international because they crossed over to American radio.
Mhm. Mhm.
And they had great shows, and they had great music videos, and they also crossed over because of Much Music.
Mhm.
They were played those videos,
Right.
So, anyways.
So do you think they don't need to like let's say Toronto-based rappers? You don't think they need to go to the States anymore and do their thing like they used to, or should they just try to follow Drake's like sort of template?
What is Drake's template?
I don't know. Just like
He just popped out of
you know,
nowhere.
it just popped out.
Well, I don't know. Like, I don't know what his template is. I don't know if I don't know if I've seen him articulate that, but I do think that he is a really hard worker. Like the amount of stuff that he puts out there, but I think it's incredible. It's like you can't deny that his
Right.
work ethic and whatnot. But I do think that artists should try to find their own voice. I don't know if finding their own way is the same as finding your own voice, though.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
if there's a model there that, hey, you signed to this label and they're open to Canadian artists, and maybe it's, attached to Drake, and you can show, the rollout and how much, how successful you can be, it's XYZ time. I'm thinking like a producer, then hey, follow that.
Yeah.
But if there's sort of like, it's all about who you know, but you have to find your own way finding that person. I don't know. It's kind of, I don't know what it is like to be a rapper in Canada now. Maybe I should do a part 2, Raising Cain.
So, looking at that video, have you worked with Director X? And like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I worked with Director X when he was just a young director. We did a couple videos with him, and the biggest video that we did with him was Northern Touch. And that's
The original with Thrust and
with Thrust,
yeah,
and we
nice.
produced that. Our Rage Filmhouse, we produced
Yes.
that, and I just remember that video. I think it was the pinnacle of Canadian hip hop. You
Yes.
had Rascals, you had Thrust, you had there's a guy also from Vancouver. Why am I not remembering this guy? Really great rapper, and who else was on that? Choclair with his coming down with the Northern Touch, his line. Cardinal,
yes.
Cardinal was great in that, and that just launched to a lot of career. It really launched Cardinal, really.
Actually, that video actually set the tone. You're right. It set the tone because we, us Canadian listeners to Canadian hip hop, we actually loved that video, and then we loved the fact that like, hey, these guys are actually here.
Yeah.
And it's good. So we got it going on. We didn't see the trajectory of Drake or anything like that, but we from that point on we said, yeah, this is real. This is like, the video's great, the music's great, it's pounding, it's hip hop music. Now's the time. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep,
It
it
was a
was
very groundbreaking song. And video.
And to Director X, I know him as Little X, sorry. It's hard for me to say Director X, but Little X, Director X, he knows what I mean, right?
Yeah.
He had the vision, like he was working with Hype Williams for his production company and got some opportunities there and really had a super crisp vision about how this video needed to look, the styling of the video, what they were wearing, the colors and the backdrops. I feel like people are still using that kind of
Kanye.
aesthetic.
Yeah,
Kanye and whatnot.
Yeah.
They're still doing that today.
Yeah.
But just seeing how Cardinal was launched and he's still making music today.
Oh yeah.
That is incredible. Like that
Yeah.
that was like that's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Like he puts out music on a very high level all the time. And I'm not sure if he's signed to a label. I don't know what the deal is because I'm not so much into the music scene. I'm more like in the film scene.
Yeah.
But it's interesting.
So the Oscars are coming up, of course.
Oscars.
What are your thoughts on this year's Oscars?
You know what? If Black Panther doesn't win something, I'm going to be...
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
And I have a cinematic reason. It was one of the films that I felt for the longest while that I can watch it and my eyes were just dancing across the screen.
Yeah.
He was actually moving the camera. For the past 10 years, 5 years, we've been getting into this tableau style of filmmaking where the camera's very still and the action kind of happens and then they go. It's all about what the actors are doing. But that was one of the films that cinematically, it was a very sophisticated film, what he was doing, how he was moving the camera. And so I really enjoyed that. Not because it's a Black film, but because of what he did cinematically. I think it should win. Now, what were you going to say? I just had to get that out there.
No, yeah, I know. Sorry, that wasn't the question. But Black Panther won something just recently, right? It was at the SAG Awards that they won Best Picture?
I don't know.
Just recently?
I don't know.
I think it was they won at the SAG Awards.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, I did see that at CP20. I could be wrong, but I just wanted to confirm that. But I was just going back to the the hashtag Oscars so white, and then the next year, you know what I mean. They gave it to Moonlight. Moonlight's a great movie, and then they gave Academy Award to Viola Davis for Fences, of course. And I'm just do you think they were just the Academy and the actually film industry itself were just trying to say, well, let's lower the boom a little bit, sort of thing. Let's do you feel that way? And it's same as with Guillermo del Toro with The Shape of Water for the next year. Like he's a Mexican director, right? And then they were talking about building a wall, right? So they.
Great director.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean there's a political motivation behind some? I hope not, because these are very, very talented people. And then I always think that, okay, even if that was the case, then you know how when sometimes we say that, Meryl Streep was nominated 20 whatever times and that, is she going to get the Oscar this time? Is it the same thing? Is that the same kind of thinking? So I hope not, because a lot of these movies I enjoy tremendously, and I think the acting is stupendous. But I think that, I hope not. And if it is a pushback, it's one thing is if it's we're just going to appease the people, or if it's at a recalibration. Why are we dismissing these people? Is there some internal bias? I think that's the thing. And I wonder if they're doing any kind of work around that. I don't know, talk to researchers or something and figure out what's the decision-making process.
Right.
Because that's a more interesting discussion, I think. Because I think with racism and oppression and, stigmatization, you have to recalibrate. And sometimes it's about the recalibration is looking at things differently. And without the bias, without the blinders, and say, hey, why did I dismiss this in the first place? Oh, checking your own bias, internally, are they checking their own bias
Mm-hmm.
and looking at it? Because Viola Davis on the screen, like she's hard to beat. Like you
Yeah,
know,
no, she's great.
she's great, and The Shape of Water. I kind of laughed at the movie, but
Me too.
I was kind of like, where is this going? But
Yeah, the washroom scene was I
yeah,
might stop this right here.
yeah, I was like,
Deaf girl and creature from the Black Lagoon. I don't know.
I don't know.
In the
It was-
water.
Not to say that the skill of creating those characters and the imagery. That's what I kind of looked at. Now that's something to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Does that deserve an Oscar? Is that why he's getting the award as best director or best picture or whatever?
Mm-hmm. And so, what are your thoughts on this year's nominees, or who do you think? Just off the top of the head, who do you think is going to win, perhaps like best actor, best actress, or best picture? If you can
Okay,
shed
this
light
is
on.
very hard this year. Like
And how do you see it? Like,
this is true.
you know?
How do I see it?
Yeah.
Well, I think
Because you're a filmmaker yourself, right?
I think for me, Black Panther is my favorite so far from what I've watched. Yes, that's my favorite, and I did enjoy a lot of what I saw, but my favorite is Black Panther, and then because I like the way he shot the movie. I love those action scenes, like when the craft was coming in and it's just taking off in one direction, like it was just so incredible. The costumes, the fight scenes, the imagery, unique imagery. That's the kind of things I look for when I'm picking. But then there's some films that I really liked. I like I did like The Green Book. I did like Black Klansman. I also liked The Favorite. I don't know if you saw that
No,
film.
I haven't seen that.
Funny. It's a satirical movie. It's just hilarious. I love that film.
That's the one with
Women
Glenn Close, right?
No, that's The Wife. I
Oh,
like
that's
The
The
Wife
Wife.
too.
Oh,
The
okay.
Wife was good too.
Okay.
And maybe I like those two movies because from a women's perspective, kind of thing. What it's like to be an older woman in one with the wife, and the other one was I think it was about Queen. I can't remember the Queen Anne, I believe, and just the court and all that. It's a costume kind of satire, and which was really really funny. Just gave you another look at royalty. I hope I'm talking about the right movie.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's really really cool film. So yeah, it's really hard this year, but yeah, high caliber people though.
No, you're right. Exactly. Do you actually take the time and watch the Oscars, or do you watch it? Do you watch it every year, and do you actually take the time to do it?
Well, now that they've expanded the Best Picture, what is it called? Best Picture category. It's
Yeah,
kind of hard to watch them all, but every year I used to watch Best Picture, whatever was nominated for that, and the actors. I usually watch them all. Supporting, and then the documentaries, long and documentary shorts. I love that section, that category.
Yes.
Yeah.
In terms of documentaries,
I haven't watched any yet this year. I was gonna say usually, but I haven't really watched this year because I've been busy making, Mr. Jane and Finch. I have another movie that I directed as well called Cool Black North that's going to be on Rogers City TV also this month, and so yeah, I've been busy.
Yes. So talk about those two films that you're currently current projects that I saw on Goldie.
Oh, which one? Okay, so there's another the Mr. Okay, so Mr. Jane and Finch, that's our project for Oya Media Group, and it's going to be at the Toronto Black Film Festival. Yep. Let me see if I got the date right. Sunday, February the 18th at 5:00 at Carlton Cinema. Why am I saying it like that? I should just know. But anyways, I think that's what it is, and you can buy your ticket right now on the Toronto Black Film Festival site. And then the other dates for watching the film is the World or the Canadian Broadcast Television premiere on CBC. Doc's POV on Friday, February the 22nd at 9 p.m. Eastern and 9:30 Newfoundland time, and you can see it that day from the first time you wake up in the morning on CBC Gem. So that's what we're that's the film that's our first film from Oya Media Group. But I was asked to also direct another film for another production company, and shout out to them, Maple Rock Media, and that was a film about Harry Jerome Award winners who have been just amazing at what they do in the community. The Harry Jerome Awards have been going on for the past 40 years. There's about 428 award winners during that time, and the film is just looking at some of their lives and how they contribute to society. And there's a 2-hour television special on Rogers City TV.
Excellent. Just to close it off on this final chapter of our podcast, what does Mr. Jaden Finch say about after he watched Mr. Jaden Finch, or how is he reacting to?
Well, he hasn't seen the whole thing.
Oh, he hasn't seen the whole thing.
No,
yet.
he's going to see it at the Toronto Black Film
okay,
Festival, and he's going to be on the panel.
He's
So that's
the
the reason to be there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those moments, I believe, in the cinema watching that film. I want to know what the community is going to feel about it, like this take on telling a story of a black man from Toronto who's trying to do things. I want to know what. What people. What do you? I don't know what. How did you feel?
What do you think their reaction's going to be?
I don't know. I think it's an inspirational story.
Yes, it's very much so.
And I think that it's told in a way that haven't really seen before. So there's two things. There's the artistry around, part of it, and then there's also, just that we want to inspire people. Mm-hmm. How did you feel about it?
I felt great about it, and I felt that somebody like that who can just actually wake up every day and try to make a difference in a community like Jane and Finch, and just plug away and be at the mall and be in the corners and just talking to people. And, I mean, that's the way it's done. Like hard work.
It's like hip hop back in the day, right?
You gotta go out and do that stuff in order to make a difference. And I hope it resonates to a lot of people who, just normal people, younger people. If they want to do something, this is like, you got to work hard at doing something. And it's so inspiring from an 80-year-old man, to actually do that. And for having to, help all these clients who are going through government housing and, gangs and such. And I'm pretty sure he hears it all the time, and he's like a martyr, right? He has a time and a focus for every single person that he talks to, and that's great. Not a lot of people do that. You know what I mean?
But do you think this is just maybe I gotta correct myself, but do you think it's just a community film, or do you think that everybody should see this film?
I think everybody should see this film because, man, it just shows that life is precious, and he's got meaning to his life. It's fabulous. You know what I mean? Not that I'm 80. I'm not gonna do nothing. I'm gonna wait till the last chapter of my life. No, this guy has meaning in his life. He gets up and does something. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't I mean, I hope it does. I hope the community, Toronto, the GTA, gets to see it obviously at the Toronto Black Film Festival and CBC Docs. But there's a bigger layer to that, and that's what I think. And I hope it does well at the Toronto Black Film Festival and CBC Docs. And Alison Duke.
I'm trying to check and see if I have the date right. Can we check it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh! How do we do this in real time?
Let me try to find it.
Yeah, we want to make sure. There we go.
Family, and they treat me like that, and I'm happy just getting the satisfaction of doing what I do.
This film almost reminded me of
the community
the short film that Stranger Cole was. Have you seen that one? The short film on Stranger Cole, the reggae artist, Toronto reggae artist.
Oh, really? I haven't seen this.
Yeah, they had it at Hot Docs. Really good. Trying
You know what? I should just go to the Facebook page. This is what happens when you make a film. It's like you make a film and it's just like, where am I? But you know, you're so amazing though. Like the fact that when I, got this call to do this interview, and then I was like, FERNTV, what's FERNTV? And I was thinking, how would I get on Between Two Ferns? How did that happen? Who saw the film and wanted to book me for that? And then I saw that your name is Fernando and Fernandez, and I was like, wow, this guy is smart. He's great branding there.
Zach Galifianakis. Yes, I know him. No, I don't.
See, well,
let's go on to the actual site here.
yeah, let's do that. Let's do that because we want to make sure that you all know the right date.
Yeah. February 13th.
You
So you're not opening, you're closing?
We're on the Sunday. It's 5 p.m. And so
Festival guide
and
schedule.
And this is like, I could really drag things on, right?
Hold on. I got it. It's coming.
No, but and
5 o'clock. 5 o'clock on Sunday, February 17th.
17th.
Yes.
I said the 18th. Okay,
Yeah,
17th. Yeah. So that's where we're gonna be. This is where we're gonna launch the film. You can get your tickets through the Toronto Black Film Festival website. I just hope it resonates with Canadians. And they'll want to see this film and talk about it with their friends, and so that they can, chime in on the CBC Gem or CBC Docs POV screening on the 22nd of February.
Alison, thank you so much for being our first guest on our show, and I want to see you again here for sure. And congratulations to your film, and I hope it does so well here at Toronto Black Film Festival and then CBC Talks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.